How about a shave? Just pretend this is a blade and not a brush. It's that time of year again. Spooky season. And every year my husband and I do a couple's costume. Last year we were Sirius and Luna. Couple's costume? Anyway, this year we decided to be Sweeney Todd and Mrs. Lovett. So I haven't actually sewn anything. That's a full sentence. I've never sewn anything in my entire life. So I decided to start small and thrift costumes, but modify them. Starting with Mrs. Lovett, this is the outfit that I thrifted, just completely bare bones. My plan for it is basically to adjust the neckline on the shirt, add some more ruffles to it to match Mrs. Lovett's a bit more, and then also add some ruffles to the skirt. I got this material for the skirt and it doesn't match it 100% as you can see, but I'm hoping that if I move some pieces around and I don't know, maybe dye it, it'll work, it'll look cohesive. But then for Sweeney Todd, I'm in a bit of a rougher shape. This is where it currently is at. So yeah, that one's gonna take a lot more modifying and a little bit more thrifting. So let's get cracking, or slicing, or shaving. Okay, first step is opening this sewing machine that belonged to my grandma. I'm not even sure how old it is and if it works or not. Brother. Ugh. It's called Brother. Brother. Ugh. Okay. Google's how to use sewing machine. Also, if you can't tell by my voice, I am sick AF, so I sound funny. That's the point. Warning given.
Now let's get the machine ready for use.
3 hours later.
Okay, I've learned things, and now let's try my first ever stitch. Can she do it? We'll see. Absolutely nothing. All right, let's try it again. Basically, the issue is that my thread just wasn't set up properly. Rookie mistake, but I am said rookie, so I watched a dude online thread his machine so many times before I attempted it again because I was just worried I was going to break something. I learned you got a back stitch and then forward stitch and then you end it with a back stitch as well. This thingy holds the material in place. Back stitch. Forward. Back again. It worked, it worked, it worked. Hooray, we have a stitch. Is she perfect? Of course not. She's a first time stitch. But she's mine. Aww. And that's all that matters. I watched a quick tutorial on how to do ruffles, so I'm going to try and apply that to my skirt ruffles. I'm very nervous. Okay. So basically my thought process was to measure the skirt and then guesstimate where I want the ruffles to sit, how big I wanted them to be, etc., etc. And then I cut my material into strips and started sewing. Okay, so this is my first attempt at a ruffle. It's not the cutest, but yeah, it's not the cutest. The tutorial I was following said to do the stitches and then pull the strings to like make the ruffle, but this material is too thick or I don't have the right stitch selected or something, so I couldn't do that. So I just kind of like got frustrated and winged it. So I'm gonna try this again tomorrow. 1 point sewing machine, 0 points man's today, and maybe tomorrow I'll have more patience. See you tomorrow. I'm still obsessed with this light. I think it's so cool and clever. I know it's like probably in every single sewing machine ever, but like so useful. Okay, it's the next day and I have been doing some thinking, and now that I'm a seamstress, I can't even say that seriously. I think I'm going to actually make a skirt. I don't know how difficult this is going to be, but I do have a pattern that I was going to use for a different skirt before I knew how to use the sewing machine, and now that I kind of know how to use the sewing machine, I think I can maybe actually do it for this costume. My reasoning being that I do like
the skirt that I already have, but once I put the ruffles on, I think it's just gonna look too different. And the problem with my ruffles and dyeing them is that dyeing the material might be okay, but dyeing thread is like a whole other ball game, and I just don't want to play that game. So I think it would just be easier to just use the same material for the whole thing, and then I don't have to dye anything and save money on dye. I'm out of breath because I'm sick. Oh boy. Anyway, so today I'm going to be actually making the skirt, and then I'll go back to the ruffles and figure out how to do that in a better way. Okay, let's do it. And let's pray I get better by the end of this video.
So I laid my pattern pieces onto the material, and I thought that maybe I could cut them into one big piece rather than two, so then I could have only one seam to sew.
I'm sure one of you out there is looking at me like, what the frick is this person doing? She has no idea what she's doing. Because I don't. This is what happened when I cut the skirt. I don't know how, because according to the pattern, the measurements were correct. I'll show you. This is kind of how it's going to look. But, yeah, that's just not going to cut it, is it? Okay, I'm going to have to look up how to fix my mistakes, because this is bad, and yep. All right, I'll go back to the Googles. Okay, so that skirt's definitely not going to work as it is, so I actually went downstairs and found this fabric. This is an old curtain that I had, and it's not perfect, but it is a similar material. I'll show you the comparison. So it's kind of similar to the lighter color of the skirt fabric, so I think it might work. My plan is to basically stick it on to the end of this to make it longer, or wider, I guess, because I need a little bit of extra room to cover my booty. So yeah, but first, what am I gonna do? Measure. Gonna measure the skirt that I had and basically copy those measurements onto this skirt. And then we'll figure out how to actually sew it all together. Okay, cool.
I quickly realized that this method didn't totally make sense because the skirt had an elastic waist, so it was hard to measure the material length for the top. So I kind of just winged it and doubled the size of my original skirt pattern. I figured that it would be better to have extra material than not enough, and then I could figure out properly how much material I actually needed later.
Plan is basically to use the new material as like the back of the skirt, so I can use the remainder of this material for the ruffles, and I'm hoping that it'll kind of cover the straight brown material enough that you won't even tell that there's really an extra material under there. So that's the plan. Basically, I'm just making this skirt. I just want it to be brown, and I want to have ruffles on the back. It's a lot of work just to have ruffles, but anyway. So I'm gonna add an elastic in like this, and I might add another panel on the bottom of the skirt depending on what it looks like, because I kind of want it to have a little bit of ruffle at the bottom like Mrs. Lovett's. I'm going to Google how to do all of this sewing and cue the sewing montage, I guess.
So to make the skirt, I basically followed another tutorial that said to double your waist size and basically cut a rectangle, but this confused me so much because I couldn't figure out why I needed to double my waist size when it was supposed to fit my waist. But then I realized that's because the top will be cinched with an elastic, so makes sense. Then I made the opening for the elastic, and I followed another tutorial for this as well, making sure that I had enough space to actually put the elastic through. But then my bobbin thread got stuck, and this hadn't happened to me yet, so once I got it unstuck, I had no idea how to properly get the thread back through the sewing machine. So with a little help from a kind Redditor who posted the manual to this machine, as well as yet another YouTube tutorial, I finally got it. It low-key blew my mind that I could just bring the thread up using the needle spinny thingy, or the foot pedal, but I guess that's not the proper way to do it. Oops. Anyway, when I got that all sorted out, it was back to sewing. Then I threaded my elastic through the opening that I made, and what was left was finishing the edges. And then, of course, at the very last stitch, when I was trying to attach the elastic together, my sewing machine didn't want to do that, so I just said frick it and ended up just finishing with a good old needle and thread.
We have a skirt. Is she perfect? Of course not. My first ever sewing piece, as you know. So basically, let's give you the full tour. Here's the front. Here's the back. And as you can see, the back is the new material that I added. And the hope is that once I get to the ruffles, I'm making the ruffles out of this material, it'll cover enough of this that it won't look super nuts. So yes, the plan. I'm gonna chill for the rest of the night because it's literally 9 p.m. and I've been at this since like noon. So yeah, it's time to take a break, I think. I broke 2 needles on my sewing machine. I was trying to finish the seam here, and because there's an elastic in the middle, it's a little bit too thick for my sewing machine, I guess, and it broke 2 needles. That's my guess. There's probably a way to adjust the sewing machine so it can do thicker materials, but that's something I'm just gonna have to Google another day because I'm tired and sick and I'm out of breath because I can't breathe. I hate being sick. Anyway, that's all for today, and I guess I will see you tomorrow. Good morning. It's the next day. I was supposed to go to a Thanksgiving event today, but I am very sick still, so bad news, I don't get delicious turkey. Good news, I get to sew more. So let's sew. Today I'm gonna do the ruffles for the skirt, and yeah. Let's do it then.
So I actually sat down and figured out how to make ruffles properly. The first time I only made 2 rows of stitches, but it works best with 3, and then you can pull the middle stitch and then it creates the ruffle. So once I had 2 ruffles done, I placed them at the top of the skirt and then planned the sizes of the rest of them accordingly. But immediately when I started to sew, the thread got stuck under the pleat and I had no freaking idea how to get it out.
I'm about to rip my freaking hair out. Oh my god, okay. This freaking string keeps getting caught in this freaking part. And I don't know how to get it out. What is this string? Oh, I think it's stuck from down there. But how did that get down there? Okay, I'll take it out and see. Nope, it's not the string I'm talking about. What the frick? It's not my day.
1 eternity later.
Oh my god, I got it. And I'm sweating. I didn't realize that this whole piece can like go up. So I was trying to fiddle with trying to get the string out through this little tiny opening, but I didn't have to do that. Wow. Okay. So anyway, I got the string out, I tested it, and it's operating as it should now. So now I can actually start on the ruffles an hour and a half later. Why is this taking 5,000 years to do? Probably because I keep trying to do things that I've never done before and expect them to go really fast. That's exactly it. Okay, ruffle time.
After I took a little break and calmed down, I started making the ruffles, and once I got the technique down, it was honestly pretty easy. And then all I had to do was sew them onto the skirt.
Okay, the ruffles are on the skirt, and before I show them to you, I'm not 100% happy with them. Had a huge battle with my sewing machine again today, and I'm just over it today. And I also broke my last needle, so I can't even do it if I wanted to. Anyway, here is what the ruffles currently look like. I think they mostly work. I just think the sides need a little bit of finish. But otherwise, I'm pretty happy with them. Were they worth all that extra work? Debatable. This is a big learning process anyway, and I'm happy to learn all of this stuff because I do want to make costumes and stuff. So I think this is a good way to start learning. Trial and error. Yeah, so that's all for today. I'm getting new sewing needles tomorrow, so once those come in, I can continue and then start on my shirt. So cool. See you tomorrow. Hello, it's the next day. I sound a teeny tiny bit better, but also still not great. Anyway, I decided to just stick with the ruffles I have for now, and then if I have time at the end of the project, I'll adjust them. I looked again at the reference image and realized that basically I thought that the ruffles got smaller in size as they went up, but they just cover the booty, and mine currently don't, so yeah, I hopefully will have time to fix that at the end, but if not, you live and you learn. I still have to make Sweeney's vest, take in his shirt, take in his pants, make a blade, make Mrs. Lovett's top, and probably some other things that I'm forgetting. So ruffles are gonna not be the priority right now. today I'm going to be starting on Mrs. Lovett's top, basically cutting the neckline and adding the little embellishments that she has on her top to the best of my ability with the materials that I have, because I am not hand sewing 1,000 little beads into the top like I'm sure the costume department for the actual movie did, but I don't have that time or that budget. So yeah, let's get started on that then. Okay, so I finished the seam and I'm liking how it's looking. So now it's time to add the details. I bought this skirt from the dollar store and basically I'm just going to use the red tulle in it for the little tulle that's in Mrs. Lovett's dress. And then I also got this ribbon that I'm probably going to add to the top as well. And yeah, this is the fun part. I get to be a little bit creative.
So I unrolled some of the ribbon and pinned it onto the top, and I was about to sew it on, but then I thought that maybe I could use some of the leftover lace from the original neck that I cut earlier, so I placed that on instead and decided that I liked it a lot better. I thought I could use a bit more volume though, so I took a table runner that I got from Dollarama, snipped it up, and added that onto the top as well.
Hello, it's the next day, and somehow I feel a little bit worse than yesterday. Does that make sense? I'm not going to show my Mrs. Lovett costume until the final reveal, but for now, I'm going to start on my husband's costume, aka Sweeney Todd. So I'm going to get him to put on this outfit, pin it, and then wrap him up in cellophane, because I need to make a vest, and I don't have a pattern, so saw it on the internet. So let's do it. It's like our wedding day, just me and my husband walking down the aisle. So now that I have this, I'm gonna cut along the seams that I made. This is gonna be an extra bit because the jacket folds over. And then after I cut them out, I'm going to trace them and make my pattern pieces. Hello, it's the next day. After I wrapped my husband in cellophane, I suddenly got way more sick than I was wrapping him, so I took the rest of the night off to chill. Anyway, today I'm going to be making the vest, and yeah, wish me luck. Here's my plan. I bought this material from the thrift store. It's literally just a curtain. And I have 2 curtains, so if I mess up with this one, I have a backup. So here's my design. Okay, so basically, you can see that this is like one piece going this way and then one piece going this way. So my plan is to copy that, do my left side and then my right side. And then also I want to include these flaps. So I'm going to add those into what I trace as well. And then also a detail that I noticed just now is that this piece kind of looks like it's been divided up into a few sections, like this seam, and then on the other side, there's this seam here. So I'm going to try and incorporate that into my design as well. Basically, my plan is to cut this whole shape out as is, and then basically cut this and then re-sew it, so then it does have that sort of seam there. And so I'm going to have to account for some extra material there. And then the back, I think it's just going to be like, you know, a basic back. And then I can stitch all the pieces together. And the neck, I was going to just make it a separate piece because it looks like it kind of goes up at the back here. I have Nick's torso here, and I'm going to basically trace it onto the material itself. I was going to trace the torso on, I hate when it's like torso. I was going to trace the torso onto the Bristol board and then trace that onto material. But I do have enough material that if I mess up the first time, I have a redo. So I'm going to just go for it. So that's the plan. All right, let's do it.
So when I was tracing the pieces onto the fabric, I made sure to leave about 2 extra inches of space, which
was very smart because having extra material is always better than not having enough. For the one side of the vest that had the piece cut out, I basically took the measurements from the opposite side and then copied them to the side that was missing it. When it came to the two floppy pieces, I kind of just winged it, and in hindsight, I probably should have measured them properly, but it worked out for the most part, so I also drew on the sections that I wanted to have the cut and re-sew details on, and also mapped out the button placements, and then it was time to cut. Once I got it all cut out and pinned together, I got Nick to put it back on so then I could see exactly where I needed to make adjustments before sewing. We're thinking ahead here. Look at me, evolving. This was a great idea because I had the buttons in the wrong spot initially, so I could actually get them exactly where I wanted them.
Okay, vest has been pinned, and now it's time to sew it all together. I'm actually shocked that this worked out. Well, I guess I shouldn't say that yet, because anything could happen between now and the final results. So, let's start sewing. I've been hand winding my bobbins this entire time because I just assumed that my machine was old and like it wouldn't be like smart. But it just winds. Oh my god. Oh, this is a time saver. Oh my god, and then it just like knows when it's done. Oh, this is technology. Genius.
Anyway, back to sewing. I basically just sewed the pieces together for the vest and also discovered that there was a way to make buttonholes with my machine, which is just so freaking cool. And then I finished the edges and sewed on the buttons.
The vest is done. Let me show you. Baby's first handmade vest. Oh my god, she did it. Wild. So let me just give you a little tour. The different pieces worked out. They all came together. Making the pattern from scratch was not that bad. It worked out. I'm very happy with that. I had to adjust it a couple times. I had to get my husband to put this on, and I pinned things here and there, but it all came out in the end, and I'm very happy with it. It's not perfect, obviously, but honestly, that kind of works for the costume because Sweeney's supposed to be a bit like, you know, not fully put together. So, I mean, he kills people, so it fits. So, yeah, I added these little bits here. I ended up not taking these two apart and resewing them. I just found an extra bit of material and sewed it on top to make it look like it was all pieced together like that way, but it wasn't. And then the back is just plain because whatever. I'm not gonna waste a whole bunch of time to do the back, she says, as she just made a whole skirt because she wanted the ruffles in the back to look nice. But anyway, here's the vest. Next step is to take in Sweeney's pants and shirt. I have to dye my socks for Mrs. Lovett and basically just do some like end bits after that. So I guess I will just get to that and then see you in the final reveal. Also, I think I'm like 90% through the sickness, so like the timing just lined up perfectly with this costume being finished. Yay for a 2-week-long cold almost being gone. It's been a freaking struggle.
So when it came to the shirt and pants, I didn't look up a tutorial on how to do it properly. By this point, I was just trying to get the costume done before Halloween, so I winged it, and it mostly worked out. But if I just took the time to look up a tutorial, it probably would have been faster in the end, but oh well. I basically just cut the existing seam, removed the fabric, and then re-sewed. You're probably supposed to like make it perfect on both sides, but it was going to be covered by a vest anyway. The reason I got such a big shirt in the first place is that I wanted the sleeves to be big like Sweeney's, and my options at the thrift store were pretty limited, so I went with a size that's like 6 sizes bigger than Nick is. And the pants actually used to be mine. I did a performance as Sweeney Todd once, so I just reused what I had. And then for Sweeney's scarf, I just cut a section from this scarf that I thrifted and tied it around a few times, knotted it, and it seemed to work pretty nice. And then I already had these gloves that would mostly work. I just had to take off the flappy bit and remove the button. Then it was time for the blade. I used foam clay for it because low-key my other clay dried out, but I figured this would be good and light anyway. Sweeney's razor blade had a lot of intricate details, and I tried my best to replicate them by making small spaghetti strings of clay and then forming them onto the blade handle. This was honestly one of the most enjoyable parts of the process. I just love working with clay and replicating props, so this was really fun to do. For the blade part, I decided to not actually make it swivelable since it would only be used for a couple pictures and videos, so I just kind of stuck it on the back of the handle. And here's the final sculpt. When it dried, I flipped it over and did the design on the back too. I wasn't originally going to do that though, so the blade on the back is a little rough, but it mostly works. Then I spray painted it, and here's the final blade. There's some rough bits on it, but overall I'm pretty happy with it. I also attempted to dye my socks red, but they ended up kind of more pink, but they had blood splatters on them, so they still kind of worked.
Oh my god, okay, so I did end up having enough time, so I redid the ruffles on the skirt, and I also added like a big ruffle on the bottom to go all the way around the bottom, and I'm so obsessed with the skirt now. I'm so glad I took the extra time to do that because it just like, it takes it to another level.
For hair and makeup, I tried to replicate what was done in the film as best I could. Mrs. Lovett's hair is all messy and sort of looked like it was in two messy buns on each side of her head, so that's what I did. Our hair textures are pretty similar too, so it worked out. For her makeup, I used some cheap Dollarama face paint for the base and then used makeup I already had for her sunken eyes and cheekbones, contour, etc. And then for Nick's makeup, I also tried to replicate what Johnny Depp had in the film, pale skin, sunken eyes, but because of his beard I couldn't do the cheekbones, but of course I added the white streak in his hair, and once we were ready, it's time for the final reveal.